Hello, everyone, and we are very happy to be joining you from UN headquarters here in New York City. We are speaking today with a really impressive panel of women who are leaders in the energy transition. And this year's HLPF, of course, includes an official review of the Sustainable Development Goal, affordable and clean energy. And we're here to talk about, at this key moment, how we can elevate the voices and the leadership of women who are helping to drive the global energy transition. I'm Catherine Clay, the lead energy analyst for the Washington Post, and I'm delighted to be joined by three panelists who can speak so well, and I know from the heart, on this issue. First, we have Selen İnal. She is the founder of Clean Energy and Green Transition Council at EcoMuse Consulting. She serves also as the country advisor for Turkey for EIT InnoEnergy and is the chairperson of the Sustainable Agricultural Scientific R&D Cooperative. She's also a member of Canada's Global Executive Network, a global network of strategic advisors. She has over 22 years of experience in the energy sector, has led investments, financing, and advisory work across renewable energy, power markets, and sustainable infrastructure. And over the past 6 years, she's focused on the green transition, ESG, and resource efficiency. And she's advised clients such as the World Bank, the European Union, and the United Nations. Welcome. It's very nice to have you here. Great. Next, I'd like to introduce Catherine Suta. She is the founder of Africa Climate Futures and also an MBA student at Duke University. In her role with African Climate Futures, which is a Pan-African platform advancing dialogue and collaboration on climate finance, energy access, and policy across sub-Saharan Africa, she works to bring dialogue and discussion on clean energy access, carbon markets, and climate policy. She's worked to strengthen youth engagement in climate and energy partnerships, and she served as a conference coordinator for the local conference of youth and climate change for Ghana, and contributed to Ghana's national youth climate statements for COPs 27, 28, and 29. So thank you for being here, Catherine.
Thank you.
Great. And then finally, I'd like to welcome Rana Gautam. She's the director of the Division of Energy and Climate Action at UNIDO. She has a long and illustrious career with that organization, where she's had several positions of increasing responsibility over 23 years, I think, maybe 20. How many years?
25.
25 years, in fact.
Yes.
Great. Well, congratulations on your anniversary.
Yeah.
She has long-standing experience in that role of designing and implementing programs in the energy sector in Africa and the MENA region. And she also coordinates the organization's engagement and partnerships in global energy fora. She leads on behalf of UNIDO collaborative global initiatives, such as the Clean Energy Ministerial's Industrial Decarbonization Initiative. So welcome all. It's really a delight to spend this time with you on such an important and timely topic. So the first question I'd like to ask each of you is, of course, we're here at the HLPF. And in the context of all of the conversations that are happening here with the SDG 7 review and the push for transformative and equitable and coordinated action, what does women's leadership in the energy transition mean in practical terms today? And Selen, if we could start with you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. For me, women leadership in energy transition is actually more than the number of women in a room. We have to really mention about the decision-making part and being the real authority, because being present is really important, and having more numbers is also important. But sometimes we see women sitting in the, let's say, meeting rooms, but they cannot have their voice, or if they want to say something, they're not listened enough, etc. So here I want to emphasize especially having women in decision-making mechanisms, like, for example, really trying to shift the priorities, or when there's a financial investment decision, the woman can take this decision, or the woman can decide what are the risks, what are the benefits, and etc. Also, it's important to include women opinions starting from the beginning, because as per my experience, we usually see that the decisions, the major decisions, are already made, and then they come to women for consultation or for minor changes, etc. Then I think it's not enough, because when women are present starting from the beginning, then the systems can become stronger. And as well, we cannot think as women stakeholder as one stakeholder only, and they are not only beneficiaries. So we have women like entrepreneurs, innovators, investments, policymakers. For this reason, we need to have all the women in all processes and systems. Just to sum up, actually I can tell 3 shifts that we need to aim at. The first one is actually to shift women from participation to decision making. And the second is actually to move from pilot to scale. What I mean with that is that we have quite a number of women-led initiatives or enterprises at the moment. There is not a number of them, but how effective they are. What I mean is that they cannot grow. Usually they have the power, but they stay somehow small, because they cannot access to patient capital or markets or purchasing things or strong networks. So we need to shift the barriers, remove the barriers for this leadership.
I think that there's so much in what you've said. I like especially the idea that we're not doing enough to have women's voices in the room at the beginning of the discussion, and the diversity, that it's not just one woman's voice, it's many types of women's voices. Catherine, what do you think? How would you add to that answer?
Okay, so women's leadership in energy transition, I think it's not about representation for its own sake, but it's about closing the gap between who is in the room when these targets are being set and the women who are in the communities on the ground. Most of the times we see that there's a very large difference between the targets set on paper and what actually happens on the grounds in these communities, in these rural communities. So I think that women leadership in energy transition is about closing that gap, not only setting the targets, but designing delivery mechanisms that make these targets actually implemented on the ground and stand the test of time. Also, I'll add up to what Selena said with the policy. Most of the time we see that women are not in the room when these policies are being finalized, and they are only brought on for the first consultation after a draft. So then there's not much that they can do. And I have experience with this while working with the local conference of youth in climate change in Ghana. I was a lead contributor to the National Youth Climate Statement, which we submitted to the at the COP, that's the Conference of Parties. And I realized that we had regional consultations where we had the voices of young women, young children right from the beginning. So you can, in the statement that we write, there's the authenticity of the information that and the crisis that people are actually facing, because right from the beginning we've involved them. So I think that what it really means for the women leadership in energy transition is to close the gap between who is setting the targets in these high level rooms and the women in the communities achieving these targets on ground. Yes.
That's great. I hear so much synergy between your observations about the difference between mere representation and true engagement.
Yeah.
Right. And Rina, what would you add to that?
I would say, for me, because often when we talk about women in energy, you know, if you look at it in any documentary, you see women that are fetching firewood because they're like bringing also fire to cook stoves or so. So there's this depiction of women as vulnerable that need support. And essentially, for me, the leadership we need to bring is looking at women as change makers, because it is the entrepreneurs that are bringing really key solutions to address energy access problems, clean cooking problems. It is also the women leaders that are bringing a lot of these topics to the global debates or implementation of local policies. So it's really this shift to look at women as the change makers that can really carry forward our societies and bring sustainable development. That is at the heart of what we are all here for.
Excellent. Well, that's so beautifully said about women as change makers. I really like I like that concept. It feels very transformative to think about women that way. You know, one thing that strikes me about what all of you have said is looking to women for the solutions, to be the change makers. And the challenge, it seems to me, is that we have, of course, you know, millions, billions of women that are in those diverse circumstances, and that knowledge is so diffuse. How do we capture that knowledge and bring it into the decision-making rooms? Maybe, Selen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think here, for example, the UN institutions is very important because really we need a umbrella organization, because there we have a lot of different countries, different experiences, and very good projects, etc. But we need to really spread what's good to the others, because not everybody has access to the knowledge how to do it, etc. So example projects, role model people, or like some initiatives that can create systematic change can be really scale up to different subjects, and the interlinkages between different SDGs are also important, because as we talk, for example, we talk about energy, but we also talk about gender, and we don't have the interlinkages between them. They don't function really very well. So the initiatives for capacity building, there are so many things that the umbrella organizations can do to establish and to spread the words and to make them visible, to inspire the others.
Yeah. I wonder if any of you have had recent experience with an example that you could share about the biggest gaps between gender responsive energy policy and what actually gets implemented on the ground. Just to make it real for listeners, what kind of tangible examples can you point to? Maybe
Sure.
Rana, yeah.
Yeah, happy to. Well, basically, the gap is really a gap between ambition and implementation. So, firstly, because when we look at energy policy, industrial policy, I mean, it's not necessarily looking at how to deliver to the last mile, how to deliver also to women, how to deliver to young people. And so basically there is a convention that we would look into setting up a power station that will deliver energy broadly to the community, but it's not really looking at how is this going down to like the community level, reaching women, and what role also women can play within that, because you know, there is also an issue of capacity in terms of you know, servicing and maintaining this power station, and so also women have a role to play here in terms of being technicians that can help in delivering support for the power station. So this is kind of a simplified example, but just to say that where we see the gaps are basically first data. I mean, we don't have, because to inform better decision making, to inform better energy policies, industrial policies, we need to have better data on you know, not just women participation, but also the business case behind that. And then the second point is also really a look of the skills gap, and what are the skills and the capacity building needs that women require so that they can effectively participate in the energy transition, because it is tech engineering, but there's also a lot of other skills that women need to acquire to be able to participate effectively. And the third gap is also a financing gap, because you know, there's really very limited financing that is flowing to women cooperatives, for example, that are be working at the community level to enhance energy access at the community level. And policies should really look at it not just from a delivering energy perspective, but really creating prosperity, creating the right set of skills, and also, you know, bringing finance to flow more equitably.
You know, you raised something at the end there that I think is so important. I mean, so much in what you've said, but this lack of financing. I wonder, in the finance community, there's this buzzword bankability, right? So what does it take for these women's collectives and cooperatives to be seen as bankable? How do we address that?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Yes.
But basically, I mean, you know, throughout our work, you'd be surprised to see how, I mean, really women get together also in an informal setting to work through schemes where they're like collecting funding. But I think here we need really more patient capital, concessional finance to flow also, so that women don't end up having an additional cost, because, you know, in some cases what's happening is that this cost, the interest rate is accumulating so much so that it's ending up about 20% more for the women on the ground lending that. So, you know, that is something that we need to overcome, and where actually credit guarantees come in, you know, and there are many institutions that are working on removing this kind of a premium so that it can help in providing guarantees to support women cooperatives in getting, you know, affordable financing, because here the issue is really affordability, because there are much more risks when you look at it from a community level. So guarantees can certainly help in overcoming these risks.
That's so powerful. I didn't realize the scale of that premium for women, and it strikes me that systematically we have this sort of self-inflicted wound where we're making it harder for this amazing resource that's already there, ready to go, making it just harder than it has to be. So thank you very much for that insight. Catherine, you've worked very closely in your cooking initiatives with women in the field. You know what they see, what they know, what they need. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with a paradox. There's a very big paradox, especially in Africa. If you pick 1 in every 4 women, 1 in every 4 of them is an entrepreneur. There's around 24% of female entrepreneurs in Africa. And then there's a huge financing gap of about $42 billion needed for these women to be able to achieve their ambition. So we realize that it's not really a shortage of ambition or a shortage of supply of women-led businesses, but it's really that the system isn't built to finance these women. So I think that it's really structural. When I look at it structural, we look at their various industries, various departments, maybe climate policies, the way climate policies are framed, energy policies are framed, they are not designed together. They are designed with women as an afterthought. So the women's plan or the idea for women or the chapter for women is sort of bolted on separately. So then most of these designs and policies that are made by different departments on different timelines. They are not intertwined. So then it seems that there's a lot of fragmentation in the ideas and the policy implementation for women. I think one thing that we can really look at is changing the face of the gender lens capital. So when women are seeking for funds, especially in clean energy, which is an industry that seems very male dominated, it's all about land, license, access to capital, big infrastructure. When women are trying to enter into this industry, then it's very steep and sharper for them to be able to succeed in it. So what I mean by changing the face of the gender lens capital is giving the money a new name. Sometimes we see a lot of funds as said, women-led businesses, you can apply, but it's the same problem. It's hard, they need huge collateral, it's harder for women to access. So when we are changing, we need to change how the money moves. Collateral, it should require less collateral. And also there should be technical skills, technical training for these women who are able to access this funding in addition to the capital, not just take the check and go and do what you have to do, or just a one-time grant and nothing else. There should be a lot of mentorship, training, and then access to business development networks that can help these women to grow. Because most of the time we realize that most of these women are in informal energy sectors. But if we are able to train them, give them the necessary training, apprenticeship that they need to move into higher levels of the energy economy, they would be more successful and would have a greater success rate. I also want to talk about something. In Ghana, Ghana is Africa's success story for electrification. We see that there's an 89% rate of electrification. That's what it looks like on paper, but even those who have access to this electricity are struggling to afford. And it comes to what Rana was talking about. Energy should be affordable. It shouldn't be in the sense that these women-led entrepreneurs now implement these ideas, and now the communities that they were made to serve say at the cost of the communities they were made to serve. Because sometimes when we are scaling energy, we end up forgetting these poor communities, and now it becomes too expensive for them to afford it. And so then do we really succeed if the communities that the interventions are made for are unable to afford this. So I think these are some of the things that we need to look at. Energy should continue to be affordable no matter the cost. And then also we need to change the face of money reaching these women in the industry. Yeah.
Well, those are some very powerful observations, and what I take from that is that it's important to look beyond the statistics.
Yeah.
So just because there's I think it was 98%, 89%, but very, very high percentage of electricity access, that doesn't mean it's affordable.
Yeah.
That's just technically true.
Yeah.
And you both touched on education. I'm really struck by how much of our conversation about energy and the transition comes down to skills and mentorship and training. What more can governments and the UN and industry be doing to help facilitate that? Selen, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I want to really emphasize the importance of mentorship programs because I've been mentoring in quite a few of such programs in my country, Turkey, and also globally. And when I do that, I really see that this one-to-one relationship with a younger female influences in a good way their life and change something. Because really usually they have a lot of questions and they have a lot of barriers to overcome, and with that younger age and let's say less experience, etc., it's more difficult to overcome those barriers. But if there is a senior mentor somehow to help her, to guide her, these barriers to remove these barriers is much easier and faster actually. So since we need to accelerate this transition for gender issues, then we need to also accelerate this younger generation to be present and to follow their paths. That's what I think is important.
Amazing, amazing. So we need to wrap up, but I have a last question. It's kind of a blue sky question for all of you. So we will be reevaluating the Sustainable Development Goal number 7 in 10 years. If you had $1 billion to invest in solving this problem, to making progress so that 10 years we were very, very pleased with our collective outcomes. If you had $1 billion to put into advancing women and their role in the energy transition, where would you put that money? So just give me your one or two top areas that you would invest in.
Okay, I think we need to properly measure the improvement. As an engineer, I can say that. So it's very important to have this gender disaggregated data and data from different parts to measure and to be able to improve it.
I love, Selen, that when I said I'm going to give you $1 billion, the first thing you went to is, okay, well, how are we going to be accountable for this $1 billion,
Yes.
right? That's fantastic. Catherine, how about you?
Yeah, so if I have $1 billion, I think I will invest in the private sector, because I think 10 years from now, being futuristic, realize that the private sector is going to catapult investments. That's where the money is. So what I would do if I had $1 billion is to collaborate with the private sector so that we can be more aligned with public policy goals. Realize that a lot of time, industrial strategy is very different from what climate finance from the government perspective looks like. So then private sector is investing in what they think their incentives may be, and then people who are on the path of climate financing, reaching communities that the last mile are very deprived of this financing. So if we can collaborate more, the private sector and government policy, public policy should be more aligned to what private investment is saying, would make much more progress, because then we are aligned to where the money is. Yeah.
And I think I hear what you're saying, that there are markets at this last mile with these communities that are going unused, unrealized. So that's very powerful. Rana, what do you think?
I'd invest in two things.
Okay.
So first, regional academies to really promote women leadership in different regions as well, because we need also not just representation, but also, geographic representation. And the second thing I would invest in is policies, because to really unlock the change needed in 10 years, we need more explicit support as well to governments, especially in the global south, to make their policies, gender responsive. And so that is the second area I would invest in. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, sadly, we're out of time. We could certainly talk with these three wonderful ladies about all of their experience and insights for many hours, but it's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, and thank you so much for joining us, and thanks. Stay tuned for more to come from the UN headquarters and Sustainable Development Goal number 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.